Hello. Good morning, my friends. Good morning. Today is Monday, April 20th. I'm glad that you're back with me. Hope you had a great weekend and that you had enjoyed some time outside and that you enjoyed all the things you did at home with your family. Today, as we start, it'll begin with busy as a bee. Bees stay busy, really busy. Just to fly, a bee has to flap its wings 200 times per second, which is what it gives a bee its buzz sound. The worker bees are the busiest of all. They're the ones that are sent out to find the nectar, the pollen, which they turn into honey. Have you ever heard of a word entomologist? That's a big word. Entomologist is a bug expert. They have found that bees make 12 collection trips each day and that a bee will visit between 50 and 100 flowers on each of those trips. These busy bees work almost nonstop from sunrise to sunset. And when they need a break, they may take a 30-second nap. Worker bees have a very short but incredibly productive life. Do you know the average worker bee lives 3 to 6 weeks? Of course, it is a good thing to work, but it's also a good thing to play. And it's a good thing to be busy, but it's also a good thing to rest. You see, your body needs sleep. When you're asleep, your brain can get ready for the next day, tidying up the thoughts and storing away things you want to remember. Sleep is also when your body heals and repairs your heart and blood vessels to keep you running at tip top shape. And when you're a kid, sleep is when you can have time to grow. Your body can prepare you to grow. When you don't get enough sleep, your body does not get what it needs, right? Can't think clearly. It doesn't work as well as it should. So, yes, go and be busy as a bee sometimes, but make sure also you get plenty of rest. Now, right now, this is a time where you may have more rest. So maybe you're sleeping later and you are not doing as much because you're staying home, but make sure that you stick to a schedule. Miss Gaylord has been going through the the Google Classroom to see if everyone has been doing their things. And she can see that you've been turning in, many of you have been turning in things on time and you're sticking to a daily schedule. If you haven't been, I encourage you to start a schedule now. And you can always go back and turn in those missing items. If you have anything on your Google Classroom that says missing, please go ahead and get those in for me, okay? That'll be awesome. All right, very good. This morning, we're going to start with our RIGS program. If you have found your RIGS journal, go ahead and get that out and your pencil. And let's begin with today's words. We get 6 new words because it is Monday. Okay? Very good. All right, so today's words start with the word scrub. Scrub. How many syllables in the word scrub? 1. Very good. Okay. It starts with a s, s, s. S makes 2 sounds. S and z. Is it the first sound? S. Yes. First sound. S. K, 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 k. C. C makes 2 sounds. K, s. It's the first sound. S, k. R, r, R. R makes 1 sound. R, R. Good. What are the sounds of U? U, The first sound, no markings. And B. B makes 1 sound, no markings. So scrub is a 1-syllable word with no markings. Now, scrub can be 2 parts of speech. If I'm going to go scrub the kitchen, that would be a verb. Good, it's an action. But if I say I'm going to wear a pair of scrubs, which are like what a doctor or nurse would wear, those would be a Noun. Very good. Okay. Perfect. The next word is duty. Duty. How many syllables in the word duty? 2. Okay. Duty starts with a t, t, D. D makes one sound, no markings. Good. Okay. Now, let's go with the next letter. What do you think it is? U. Okay. Is it the U, oo, It's the third one, the do, do, not the not the U, but the ooh. See my lips? Ooh. So we put the 3 above the do. Do, syllable dot, t, t, t. T makes one sound, so T has no markings. And then what is the last sound? The Y. What are the sounds of Y? Yeah. It's the E, so you put a 3 above the Y, duty. Very good. Okay. Now, what part of speech is duty? It is your duty to serve your country. That would be a noun. Noun. Very good. Okay. The next word is auto. Auto. Okay. Auto starts with a aw sound. Now, this is a 2-letter sound. Do you know which one? Aw that we do not use at the end of English words. Why not? Because English words cannot end in U. Aw, syllable dot. Underline it because it's a 2-letter sound. Aw, toe, t, 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 T. One sound for T, no markings. And O. Now, if a word ends in a syllable and you hear that vowel, we underline it. It's the long O. So auto. Auto. Very good. Okay, now auto is also a prefix which deals with what? Noun. What do you think auto means? Something to do with a car. Very good. Okay, so the next word is a longer word. And we're going to make a plural of the word auto, and it's going to be autos. Okay, autos. So we're going to use the same sounds, the aw, which is the 2-letter aw. So we need to write the 2-letter aw, syllable dot, t, 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 no markings. T makes one sound. O. Now this time it doesn't end in the letter O, so we don't underline the O. Instead, what sound does it make? Ah, O, oo, O, it's the second sound. So we put a 2 and then we add the s, s, autos. Is it the s or the z? It sounds like a z. So we put 2 and 2. Now look at the difference between this auto. See how we underline the O? We hear the long O. This time the word does not end in the O, it ends in an S. So we take the second sound, O. Ah, O, oo, It's the O. We put a 2. We put a 2 over the S because it's not the S, it's the Z. Autos. That's word number 4. Word number 5 is an even longer word that starts with auto. Auto has to do with this one has to do with a car. Okay, let's see what you think the word might be. What's a word longer than this? Another name for a car. Automobile. Very good. Okay. Automobile. It also starts with the aw. The 2-letter aw. Okay, how many syllables in automobile? Automobile. 4. So it starts with the aw, syllable dot. T. T makes one sound. T. No markings. O. Automobile. Just like in that first auto, we underline the O because it's the last vowel of that syllable. Auto, mo, M, M, no markings. M makes one sound. O, again, underline the O, long O, the only syllable that has that vowel. B, b, B. B has no markings because B makes one sound. E, E. I, E. It's the third one. Put a 3 over the I because it makes the E sound. L. L has no markings. L makes one sound. And then it ends in the E. Job number 5. Okay, job number 5. Underline it. It is silent. Automobile. If you need to pause and catch up on the phonics video, you can do that. I'm going to move on to the last word. Hungry. Hungry. How many syllables? Hungry. 2. Starts with a H. H has one sound, no markings. What are the sounds of U? U, oo, It's the first one, no markings. Huh, g, g. You hear the g. You don't hear the N. So it's silent. Gree. So you really don't hear the N. So we underline it twice. Hungry, g. You hear the g, g, g. G, what are the sounds of G? G, j. It's the first one, g. So you don't make any markings. R, no markings. R makes one sound. And E. How do you end hungry? With a Y. Hungry. Is it the ya or the I-E? It's the E. So you put a number 3 above. Hungry. What part of speech is hungry? The boy was hungry for dinner. We have a adjective here. Very good. Okay. Now, if you need to pause and look at the words, okay, turn the video on, pause, and copy the words. We're going to move on to the parts of speech here. Do you see any nouns? What are nouns, my classmates? Person, place, things, or ideas. Do you see any words on our lists that are nouns? Okay, we said if you wear a pair of scrubs, or I'm going to wear a scrub shirt, okay, that could be a noun, a scrub. Another noun could be this. This is something you should do. It's called your duty. It's a thing. Another noun could be which word? Auto. Okay, auto could be a noun. Very good. Auto. Okay, also the plural, autos and automobile. So we have 5 out of these 6 that could be a noun. We have scrub, duty, auto, autos, and automobile. All 5 could be nouns. Do we have any verbs on our list today? Do you see any verbs? No, no verbs. No verbs. Do you see any adjectives? Gaylord said there's one adjective. Do you see what it is? Hungry. Very good. Hungry. Write that down under your parts of speech: nouns, verbs, and adjectives. Okay? Very good. All right. If you are caught up, you can put that paper away to go over our phonogram cards today. Let's go over our sounds. And we're going to start with the sounds of A. There are 4 sounds to A. What are they? A, aw. C, 2 sounds. K, s. Good. D, 1 sound. D, d. F, 1 sound. Good. G, 2 sounds. G, j. Very good. Okay. O, 4 sounds. A, o, u, S, 2 sounds. S, z. What word on our list had a z? Z. Did you get it? Autos. Very good. Okay. Q-U, qua, qua. B says b, 1 sound. B, b. E, 2 sounds. E. H, 1 sound. I, 3 sounds. I, E. Very good. Okay. What word had an E sound that's spelled with an I? Automobile. E. Beal. J, 1 sound. J. K, 1 sound. K. M. L, 1 sound. O. M, 1 sound. M. P, N, 1 sound. N. P, 1 sound. P. R, 1 sound. T, 1 sound. T. U, 4 sounds. U, V, 1 sound. V. W, 1 sound. W. X, 1 sound. X. Y, 4 sounds. Ya, I, E. What word on our list had a E? 2 words. 2 words. Duty. Hungry. Very good. Z, 1 sound. Z. Perfect. Let's look at our 2-letter sounds. The of her. The of early. The of works. The of nurse. The of first. Shh. Used at the beginning of a word, at the end of a syllable, but not at the beginning of most syllables after the first one, except for the ending ship. E always says E. Very good. A 2-letter A that we do use at the end of English words. A 2-letter A that we do not use at the end of English words. Why not? Because English words do not end with I. Very good. Ow, cow and snow. Ow, Good. That we do use at the end of English words. That we do not use at the end of English words. Why not? Because English words do not end with you. What words on our list have the aw, 2-letter aw? Auto, autos, automobile. 3 words. You did it. Good. You that we do use at the end of English words. You that we do not use at the end of English words. Why not? Because English words do not end with you. Oi that we do use at the end of English words. Oi that we do not use at the end of English words. Why not? Because English words do not end with I. O. Good. Ch, k, sh, ch, k, sh. Ng. two-letter k used after a single vowel that says a, e, I, a. Ed, d, t, past tense ending. Or wha, oo, I. Very good. O, the O of boat. A-E, that we do use at the end of English words. A-E, that we do not use at the end of English words. Why not? Because English words do not end with I. A, four-letter A. I, three-letter I. E-I, our backwards phonogram. We say E-I, but we write I-E unless it's after a C. Good job. Two-letter used only at the beginning of a base word. Two-letter f, two-letter f. Two-letter used both at the beginning and end of a base word. J, three-letter J, used after a single vowel that says a, e, I, a. O, the O of toe. Ch, three-letter ch, used after a single vowel that says a, e, I, a. Sh, short letter sh, used at the beginning of any syllable after the first one. Sh, tall letter sh, used at the beginning of any syllable after the first one. Sh, z, used at the beginning of any syllable after the first one. And o, oo, uff, off, all, ow. One more time. O, oo, uff, off, all, ow. You did it. You got through another round of phonogram cards. You get your star today. And what did Miss Gaylord find today? She has some little erasers. The first one you get is an owl. Good job. Okay. You get the owl and the star. Okay, very nice. Let's look today. If you need to press pause before we begin our math lesson, please do so. If you have not found your math materials, you may want to get those. Okay? Miss Gaylord is going to grab her shapes. Have you been practicing your time and money each day? Okay, I hope so. Let's see if I can find my money. Okay, now, this one I want to do today starts off with $1.07, okay? It's this one up here, $1.07. If I were to use a bill, of course, I would grab a dollar. What are the ways to make a dollar again? I could use 100 pennies. I could use how many nickels? How many nickels? 20 nickels. Very good. I could use how many dimes? 10 dimes. Or I could use the least amount of coins, and I could use 4 quarters. If I'm going to make $1.07, and I want to use the least amount of coins, I'm going to count out $1 in these. A quarter would be how many? 25, another quarter, 50, 75, and $1. Now, I want $1.07. Can I use another quarter? That would be $1.25. Nope, too big. Can I use $1 and a dime? Still too big. Can I use $1 and a nickel? I can. That would be $1.50. 5 cents. And then how many pennies would I need to add? 2. And so now I have $1.07. Very good. Okay. Now let's say I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to make a purchase. And all I have is a $5 bill. Okay. But the price that I want to buy cost $1. How much change would I get back from $5? I'm going to use my keywords. Remember how Miss Gaylord used to ask you what your keywords were? What is the keyword change? Does that fall under adding or subtracting? That's a subtraction keyword. What are some other words that mean subtract? Do you remember? We talked about have left. Good. We talked about the word less and fewer and even the word more. All of these are subtraction words. Change is another subtraction word that we'll look at today, okay? I've got $5 and the price that I want to spend is $1. What should I do to get the change? Should I add or subtract? I should subtract how much? 1. I should subtract $1. So I've got a $5 bill and the price of the good is $1. How much change should I get back? 1, 2, 3, 4. The change is now $4. Okay, $4. You can also practice with your money. Have mom or dad ask you to play with change and see how much you would get back. Let's say your price cost 17 cents. Okay, how much change would you get back from $1? How would you figure that out? Well, we have been subtracting, and you guys know how to subtract 3 digits. You could take the price. Let's say your price cost, you have $1 and you want to subtract the 17 cents. Remember, we haven't subtracted since we've been homeschooling, but we did this all the time back in the classroom. You need to practice your 3-digit subtraction. Remember, can you take 7 from 0? Nope. You need to move over. Can you take 1 from 0? No. Okay. So what do? We borrow from the 1. We make it a 0. We add 10, but we have to borrow again. Remember, we regroup and we put a 9 in the tens place and we add 10 to the ones. So now we have 10 minus 7 is what? 3. And 9 minus 1 is what? 8. Very good. And so our change would be 83 cents. Now you need to write down some 3-digit subtraction. Write down some 3-digit addition. You should be able to do these. Have mom or dad or make some problems yourself. Remember how we used to do our flashcards every day? Are you still doing those? Can you add up 3-digit plus 3-digit? What's 4 and 8? 12. Very good. What's 1 and 7? 8 and 6 is what? 14. Nice. Okay. What is 1 and 2? 3 plus 1 is 4. Practice doing some 3-digit addition and some 3-digit subtraction so that you will be ready when you get to 3rd grade, okay? All right, very good. Last week, I introduced you to some other shapes. Now, some shapes are what we call flats. I think Miss Gaylord used this word one time, but let me use it again. You may see this in some of your homework this week. Do you know what she means when she says the flat shapes? These are flat. They're not 3-dimensional. They're flat, okay? The word that I want to show you that these mean are polygons, okay? Can you say that word for me? Polygon. Now, a polygon means you're going to have straight sides. The last 2 weeks, Miss Gaylor has been showing you shapes with straight sides. Remember this shape? What is it? A square. This one. A rectangle. Very good. Remember this one? The rhombus. This one. The hexagon. Good job. Remember this one? All of these have straight sides. This is the triangle. Perfect. These are called polygons if their sides are straight. What's a 5-sided figure? A pentagon. Good. What's a 4-sided figure when all the sides are the same length? A square. Good. What's a 3-sided figure? A triangle. What's a 4-sided figure when 2 sides are one length and 2 sides are the other? A rectangle. Now, these are straight-sided. Is this one what we call a polygon? No. Do you see how the sides are not straight? This is curved. This is not a polygon. This is not a polygon. Is this a polygon? Yes, because the sides are straight. Okay, do you remember how we learned some of the other straight-sided? Whoops. Sorry. Okay, let's talk about this one. This one is our trapezoid. Is it a polygon? Yes, because it's got straight sides. Very good. Okay, what is this one? The rhombus. Is it a polygon? Yes, it's got straight sides. Okay, what is this one? The hexagon. Is it a polygon? Yes, it has straight sides. Now, look at this one. Is this what we call a polygon? Let's see if I can get it open. There we go. Is this a polygon? No, it does not have straight sides. Now, these are called three-dimensional shapes, okay? These are shapes that have 3 dimensions. This is called not a square, but a cube. I showed you this last week. A cube has these sides. When 2 sides come together, what do we call that point where they come together? We call it a vertices, a vertex. Very good. Vertices is plural. Okay, so we call it your vertex. It has an angle and it has a vertex everywhere that the shape comes together. This one is not the polygon. This is a 3-dimensional shape. Okay, we call this a rectangular prism. And it also has vertices. See where the 2 sides come together? One has one here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is what we call a rectangular prism. That's different than this rectangle. This is a polygon, okay? And this is a 3-dimensional shape, okay? Now, what is this one called? Okay, this one we often call a pyramid. Very good. Do you see how it's different than this one? This is a polygon. It's a flat shape with straight sides. This one is the pyramid. It's got vertices where these come together, where the sides come together. It's got one here, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And the sides are all different, okay? Those are different than what we call a polygon, okay? So I want to make sure you understand on your quiz, your homework quiz, it'll show you some shapes this week with geometry, and it'll show you, ask you some questions, and it'll use the word polygon, straight-sided figure, flat. Polygon, okay? Polygon, 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 Polygon. Okay, these are all polygons. Very good. So you'll see that word come about again, okay? All right, today, if you have printed out your materials for math, we are going to be back in our book today, and we're going to be on page 270. If you need to press pause and gather your things, please do so now. Page 270. This is called math in action. Do you know what that means? Do you know as you grow up, you're going to have to use math in your daily life? What kind of jobs would you have that used math in them? Okay. What kind of jobs would use math? Lots of jobs, right? Okay. I just let the air condition guy into my house, and he had to use math because he had to measure out things to go into my air conditioner. Okay. He used math. A construction worker would use math. If you're going to be a builder or an architect, you're going to use math. All sorts of jobs use math. You wouldn't even think about use math. Okay. So today, this is called Math in Action. Recognize and use shapes. Okay. Our problem is on page 270. It says, read the problem about breaking shapes into equal parts and then look at Luna's solution to the problem. All right, so the problem is called cake shapes. Now, Luna makes 3 cakes. Okay, do you see how her cakes are different shapes? You can pour the batter into the shape of a pan, and the first cake shape is in a circle. Okay, and then her second cake shape is in a rectangle, and her third cake shape is just in a square pan. So these are her 3 shapes of cakes. Now, here's her problem. Luna makes 3 cakes. She wants to cut each cake into equal size pieces. What word did we learn that means part of a whole? Fraction. Good. Okay, so we're going to have some fractions here with these cake shapes. Now, it tells you what to do. It says, take the shape of the circle, and it says the circle, the rectangle, and the square. And it tells you to cut one of the cakes into halves, cut one into thirds, and cut one into fourths. Now, do you remember what those terms mean? How do you write 1/2? You put 1 over 2. That's 1/2. How do you write 1/3? 1 over 3. And how do you write 1/4? 1 over 4. So you want a cake that's going to display 1/2, one that will display 1/3, 3 parts, and one that will display 4 parts. 2 parts, 3 parts, 4 parts. Okay, so now that we know that, let's look and see what we can do. It says, show one way that Luna can cut the cakes. Here's the problem-solving checklist. Okay, when we go to solve this problem, there's 4 things we can do. It says, circle what you already know. Tell what is known. What do we know? We know that we've got 3 cake shapes, a circle, a rectangle, a square. Underline something you need to find. Well, we need to find the equal size pieces. Draw a box around what you do to solve the problem. And then it says, put a check mark next to the part that shows the solution that works. Okay, so let's figure this out. All right, so it says on the next page, if you look at your materials on 271, it says, what is Luna's solution? Well, what do you already know? I know that halves are how many parts? 2, right? Okay, so we're going to use the circle and show halves. Now, does it really matter where you draw the line around the circle as far as making it halves? Not really. I'm going to just make it across horizontally to show you because that's what they did in the book. In the book, I took the circle cake and I made it into two parts, which is called halves. There's one half on top, and then here's the second part on the bottom. Okay, there's two parts, 1 and 2. Okay, and I know what thirds are. Now, thirds are when I have 3 equal parts. So let's just again take this shape. Let's take this rectangle since the second cake is a rectangle. How could I divide this into what we call thirds? Okay. This is one way. Now, your way may be a little different, but the book shows you this way. I could take one part, which is red. That's 1/3. This is 2/3. And then I could take all 3. This would be 3/3. 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts, okay? So I could take my rectangle and I'm going to make my cake into that shape. 1, 2, 3. Those are what we call thirds. 1/3, the second third, and the last third. 1, 2, 3. And then it says take the last one, which is a square, and you can divide it into 4 equal parts. I'm going to show you with this shape. I'm going to show you with my pink shapes. 1, 2, okay, and 3 and 4. I'm not going to show you all 4, but I'm going to show you with the white. The white is 1, this one's 2, this one's 3, and this one is 4. Those are 4 equal parts of the last cake. So I take my pencil, I'm going to divide it this way, and I'm going to make 4 equal parts. 1/4, another fourth, another fourth, and the last fourth. Okay, so I divided my first cake up into halves. My second cake is divided into thirds, and my last cake is divided into fourths. Very good. Okay, now notice that they drew yours a different way. They took the last cake and they divided it like this. Would this still work? Are those still equal parts? Yes. Part 1, 2, 3, and 4. I just did mine crossways, but you can do either way. Do you see how either of these would work? Either of those would work. Very good. Okay, so then it says, I need to cut each shape into a different number of equal parts. I can tell now how I cut the shapes. I cut the circle into what? Halves. I cut the rectangle into thirds. And I cut the square into fourths. Very good. Okay, now, how many pieces will Luna have after she cuts the cakes? How many pieces in the first cake? She's got 2 pieces in this cake. How many in the second cake? 3. And how many in the last cake? 4. How many pieces does Luna have altogether? 2 and 3 is 5, and 5 and 4 is 9. So she can serve how many people? 9 people. Very good. Okay. Now, let's say you have a rectangular cake here. How could you cut it? What are the ways you could cut it in halves if you wanted to? Remember that? You could cut it down the middle, would be one way. You could cut it horizontally across the middle, or you could cut it diagonally this way, or you could cut it diagonally this way. Very good. Okay, so there are different ways you could cut it into halves. I think you remembered that. Either way, each of these portions represents 1 half, and this one is 1 half. If you have both halves, 1/2 plus 1/2, you have how much? 1 whole. Very good. Okay. So this week, as you do the homework, each night there will be a homework for you to do. Now, Miss Gaylord counts those for a grade. So take your time on those, okay? And make sure that you are answering correctly. Very good. Okay. We'll also upload some other things for you to do this week as you practice these fractions, okay? Fractions can be fun. Another thing that we're going to do this week is we're going to make pictures with using these shapes. Do you know what those are called when you make pictures using shapes? They're called tangrams, okay? I've got 2 pictures here. These are just rectangles. But what if I want to take some more bands? We did this in class a little bit. We never really got to the tangrams because it came at our end of the year with geometry. But what if you wanted to make pictures with your bands? Could you do that? You could make different shapes. What are these flat shapes called? Polygons. Here I've got a 3-sided shape, let's say triangle. Here I've got a 5-sided shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's called a pentagon. Here I've got a 4-sided shape. 1, 2, 3, 4. If the sides are all equal, we call that a square. Good. And if the sides are not equal, it could be a rectangle. Either way, a 4-sided polygon is called a quadrilateral. Very good. We'll be practicing with these and making some shape pictures and tangrams later in the week as well. Thank you for listening to your math lesson. You have another star and you got another. Let's see what we got this time. Eraser. Can you see what it is? You got a cat today. Very good. If you need to press pause on the video, can you do that now, please? And if you are getting your materials together, you need to grab your reading. Okay, your reading. If you printed out your materials, it's on page 366. Now, the last 2 weeks, we talked about 2 things. Comparing and contrasting, telling the things that are similar and different. And then last week, we took pictures and text and looked at them together to see if it helped us understand a story better. Today, we're going to combine both of those things, and we're going to take the comparing and contrasting with the textual story and put them together to complete today's lesson. Have you ever watched like a movie after you read a book? After we get through reading our Charlotte's Web, I encourage you maybe to watch the movie if you haven't. What do you notice about maybe a book and a movie? Are they always the same? No, they're not. People always say the book is much better than the movie. Do you know why that is? Because in a book, you have more time to write. In a movie, you're just using the main key ideas that happen in the book, and you always can't develop it the way you do in a book. But you know how sometimes a book and a movie can have some things that are the same and some things that are not the same. Do you remember what we call this? We've used it several times the past couple of weeks. A Venn diagram. Now, in this Venn diagram, do you remember the part where there's going to be the same? Okay, we call that the compare part. What do we call the parts on the outside? The contrast. Good, how they're different. Well, this time we're not going to compare a book and a movie. We're going to compare a story with a different story. Did you like the story last week of the 3 little javelinas? What story did that kind of remind you of? The story of the 3 little pigs. That's why Miss Gaylord chose that book to read to you via video, because I wanted to look at how you compare stories. They're similar, but they might be a little bit different. In our book today, the Learning Target says, reading 2 versions of a story will help you see how writers can tell the same story in different ways. Now, the stories we're going to read today, you can see the pictures at the bottom, are two. We're not going to read the whole stories. You know a lot of the stories, but we're going to look at two different stories. I can tell by just looking at those pictures that there's some things that I can compare. Now, look closely if you've printed out your materials. The first one is called Little Red Riding Hood. There's a picture of the story. You know the famous story of Little Red Riding Hood. Remember that one? What's some of the characters in Little Red Riding Hood? Okay, the Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf, remember, that dresses up like the grandmother. Now look at the other picture beside it. Pretty Salma. You may not have read that story, Pretty Salma, but you can look at the picture and say there's something about those two pictures that are alike, and there's something about those two pictures that are different. Let's read the text. It says, when you compare stories, you find ways that they are alike, and when you contrast stories, you find ways that they are different. Sometimes two stories have mostly the same plot. Do you remember what the plot is? Okay, what's happening in the story. But they may have different characters or settings. These are called versions of a story. Different versions of the same story are often told in different countries. Might you understand what the story, what version of the story Little Red Riding Hood or Pretty Salma is? You've mostly probably heard the story of Little Red Riding Hood here in America. Do you know that Pretty Salma is a version of the same story, but it's told on a different continent? Where do you think it comes from? Where continent do you think it comes from? Africa. Africa. This version of the classic tale is set in Africa. And in this story, the little girl is not called Red Riding Hood. Her name is Salma. She heads across town to buy groceries for her grandmother. She's wearing not a red riding hood, but a blue scarf, and she's wearing sandals. On the way home, she meets Mr. Dog, who is up to no good. Salma and her grandfather, though, save the day, and Salma learns a valuable lesson about strangers. Now, do you remember the classic tale of Little Red Riding Hood? Do you remember the little girl goes through the woods to deliver treats to who? Her grandmother, remember, who's ill. But before she gets there, who sneaks into the house? The wolf. And remember, the story says the grandmother is not there. Instead, the wolf is dressed up in the bed looking like the grandmother, remember? But the little girl is saved at the end of the story from the big bad wolf by the woodcutter. Now let's talk about how we can compare these. If you have printed out your Venn diagram to turn in, that's awesome. If you haven't, you can just grab a piece of loose leaf paper and you can draw a Venn diagram here. And you can look at the two different stories. Miss Gaylord's going to write Little Red Riding Hood on one side and Pretty Salma on the other. She's going to kind of abbreviate because she doesn't have a lot of room. So this is the contrast part that just happened in Little Red Riding Hood, and this is what happened in Pretty Salma. And then in the middle, of course, is what happened in both stories. Okay. Do you want to start? Sometimes it's easier to start by looking at what happened in both. Do you see something about both stories that look at the picture? Even if you haven't read the story, you just listen to Miss Gaylord's story. What do you see in both stories? Okay, I see a mean-looking animal. I'm going to put down animal, but you know that it was kind of a mean-looking animal. in both stories. Do you see something else that looks familiar in both stories? Okay, they both have a character of a little girl. What else do you see? What's in both of their hands? They're both carrying food. Okay, very good. So when you write your part for the compare, you want to look at the middle there for both. What do you see in Little Red Riding Hood that's different than in Pretty Salma? Okay, I see that she's wearing a red cape. And what is Salma wearing? Yes, good. A blue scarf. Okay. What animal do you see in Little Red Riding Hood? I see a wolf. What animal do you see in Pretty Salma? I see a mean-looking dog, a dog. Look at the setting of the stories. What is the setting of a story? A setting is where the story takes place. Look at the surroundings of each story. Where does Little Red Riding walk through to get to her grandmother's? Okay, her setting would be a forest. Very good. And then she walks, remember, to the cabin. Where is Salma walking? Can you tell in that picture? Looks like she's walking through the town. Okay, perfect. Look and see what's in their hands. What is Red Riding Hood carrying? Okay, looks like she's carrying a basket. What is Salma carrying? Looks like she's carrying a bowl. Now you might say that's a detail. It is. Sometimes stories are made up of details that make a difference in the stories. What does Miss Gaylord mean by the word detail? A detail is not the most important thing in the story. They are the small items that make up the story. So things like her carrying a basket and this one carrying a bowl is a detail. It's not the key point to the story. It's not the main thing, but it also can be important to a story. Now, this week, we'll talk about comparing. Miss Gaylord may give you some more videos to watch in science and other things. Did you enjoy the three little javelinas? And we could compare that story to a story like the Three Little Pigs. And this week, we'll be doing more of the comparing and contrasting. Okay? Very good. Okay. There's other folk tales like these. Okay. What does Miss Gaylord mean by folk tales? A folk tale would be a story that was handed down from the past, usually, right? They often have good versus evil. We talked about our story of folk tales. Now, not tall tales, but folk tales. Typically, you have a good versus an evil character in a folk tale. And sometimes there's a problem or a conflict, right? And it's often between people and nature. Some familiar ones we read earlier in the year. Do you remember? Okay. Not a fairy tale or a tall tale, but a folk tale. You named some fairy tales. Okay. Very good. Okay. Jack and the Beanstalk is one. Cinderella. We've talked about some of those earlier in the year. Okay. Now, you have completed that portion of your reading. Now, in reading, you need to look for several things. There's a reading quiz you have to take that's just reading skills. It'll be in the Google Classroom. Make sure you click and turn in by the end of the week. There's also a second part to reading, which is also the ELA component with the book Charlotte's Web. There are also Charlotte's Web quizzes in the Google Classroom. Make sure you've taken everything and you've looked. Is there anything that I am missing? Okay. You get a star for your third star today. Doing a great job. And your next little eraser is your elephant. Elephant. Good. Okay. If you need to press pause, you can do that and find your materials. All right. So for science this week, we're continuing our study on landforms. Last week, we started the deserts, and you had to do the activities on deserts. Today is another video you're supposed to watch on the desert landform. We'll also be using that to find research about you can either choose an animal or a plant. Okay, and how it lives in its surroundings. What word did Miss Gaylor give you last week that means something an animal or plant has that allows it to survive in its surroundings? Do you remember that word? It's a big word. Adaptation. An adaptation. Okay. Now, just a couple of animals I have here to show you today. Do you remember what is an adaptation of this elephant? Okay. It's got a long trunk that allows it to get water. Very good. Okay. Do you remember the adaptation of something like this? A bird. Okay. A bird has wings that allows it to fly. What kind of bones does a bird have? Hollow bones. They're light so they can glide up in the air and fly. Okay. Can you tell this is a fish? What's an adaptation of a fish? It breathes through its what? Gills. Very good. Since it doesn't have lungs, it has gills. Another adaptation of this fish is its fins. Helps it swim, and its body is covered with scales. The fish has several adaptations, remember? Okay. What's an adaptation of this penguin? Okay. A penguin has the adaptation where it's able to live in cold temperatures. Okay. Its feet help it walk or waddle around. Okay. It could fly if it needs to. It doesn't very often, but it does have wings. So animals are given adaptations. If I said quickly, what is the adaptation of a giraffe? You'd say its long neck lets it get leaves from the trees. What's the adaptation of the tiger? It's camouflage spots and its very fast ability to run and its claws. Okay, what's an animal called that if the animal is going to be the animal that goes after another animal, we call that animal the predator. Good. And the animal that's sought after is the prey. Okay, so today's lesson, you're supposed to watch the video on the deserts again, and then you're supposed to choose this week an animal or a plant to talk about the adaptations of that plant. How does it survive? Okay, and if it's in a desert, it could be very cold at night, but very scorching hot during the day. So talk about the adaptations. There's a place for you to research, and it tells you exactly what you need to do there, okay? Now, since we're covering landforms and terrain, we're going to be using this in social studies and science. So Ms. Gaylor will flip-flop social studies and science and kind of cover the same things this time, okay? Very good. All right, so the next thing we can do is find your materials for your reading ELA book, okay? This is called, our book tonight is Charlotte's Web. Our book today, we're on chapter 11. Now, a lot happened last week. Do you remember the last chapter we read was called An Explosion? What was the explosion? Okay, it was the rotten egg. Who actually saved the day from Charlotte being taken by Avery? It was Templeton. Remember Templeton? He saved the day with that rotten egg. Avery fell on the trough and was able to come down upon the egg, and that rotten smell drove everyone away from the barnyard, and Charlotte was saved. It was a narrow escape, remember? What was Charlotte doing during that time while she was in the barnyard that night? What was she doing? We left off and she was trying to make her plan to save who? Wilbur, right? Wilbur needed to be saved. Why did Wilbur needed to be saved? Remember, he had heard that something was going to happen to him around Christmas time, and he might be killed. The old sheep had told him, and he did not want that to happen. So Charlotte said she'd come up with a plan. He kept asking, Charlotte, what's your plan? She said, I'm thinking on it. I'm thinking. And finally, this night, we leave off. Charlotte has torn a section from her web, and there's an open space in the middle. And this chapter is called The Miracle. What do you think about when you see the word miracle? Miracle. Something that happens that normally could not happen without something special, right? Okay. If people say that's a miracle, they mean something really should not have happened that did happen. So this chapter is chapter 11. If you're following along in your book, pull out your book to page 77. If you are reading along with us in your PDF, pull out whatever you have to read that with us, okay? We're on chapter 11. The next day was foggy, and everything on the farm was dripping wet. The grass looked like a magic carpet. What kind of figurative language is that? If we say the grass looked like a magic carpet. Do you remember the figurative language that uses the word like or as? We call that a simile. You know, many of you know that. We talk about that word in class, a simile. What's being compared when you talk about a simile? It says, the grass looked like a magic carpet. You're comparing the grass to a magic carpet. That's a simile. The asparagus patch looked like a silver forest. There's another simile, and it uses like. What's being compared there? The asparagus patch to a silver forest. Good job. On foggy mornings, Charlotte's web was truly a thing of beauty. This morning, each thin strand was decorated with dozens of tiny beads of water. The web glistened in the light, means it was shiny in the light, and it made a pattern of loveliness and mystery, like a delicate veil. Another simile that uses like. What's being compared there? The beautiful web to a delicate veil. Even Lurvy, who wasn't particularly interested in beauty, noticed the web when he came with the pig's breakfast. He noted how clearly it showed up, and he noted how big it was and how carefully built it was. And then he took another look, and he saw something that made him set his pail down. And there in the center of the web, neatly woven in block letters, was a message. Do you know what the message said? Some pig inside the spider web. Okay? You've got a spider web, and it's all connected. And here inside the web says the words, some pig. What do you think Lurvy thought? He He didn't know what to think. The book says Lurvy felt weak. He brushed his hands across his eyes and he stared harder at the web. Charlotte's Web, right? Page 78. I'm seeing things, he whispered, and he dropped to his knees and he uttered a short prayer. And then, forgetting all about Wilbur's breakfast, he walked back to the house and he called Mr. Zuckerman. This is what he saw. What? I think you better come down to the pig pen, Lurvy said. What's the trouble? Said Zuckerman. Anything wrong with a pig? Not exactly, said Lurvy, but come and see for yourself. The two men walked silently down to Wilbur's yard. Lurvy pointed to the spider's web. Do you see what I see? He asked. And Zuckerman stared at the writing on the web, and then he muttered the words, some pig. And then he looked at Lurvy, and they both began to tremble. Do you know what the word tremble means? We learned. Okay, to kind of shake with fear. Charlotte, sleepy after her night's exertions, smiled as she watched. Okay, her exertions were what she had done to wear herself out. Wilbur came and stood directly underneath the web. Some pig, muttered Lurvy in a low voice. Some pig, whispered Mr. Zuckerman, and they stared for a long time at Wilbur. And then they stared at Charlotte. You don't suppose that spider, began Mr. Zuckerman, but then he shook his head and finished the sentence. He didn't finish the sentence. Instead, he walked solemnly back to the house and he spoke to his wife. He said, Edith, something has happened. And he said it in a weak voice. He went into the living room and he sat down, and Mrs. Zuckerman followed. I've got to tell you something, Edith, he said, and you better sit down. Mrs. Zuckerman sank into a chair. She looked pale and frightened. Do you know what the word pale means? Okay. Her skin color was white and pale. Edith, he said, trying to keep his voice steady, I think you had best be told that we have a very unusual pig. What did Mr. Zuckerman mean by the word unusual? Not usual, not like every other pig, right? A complete look of bewilderment came over Mrs. Zuckerman's face. Do you know what bewilderment means? She couldn't believe it. Just what? Bewildered. Homer Zuckerman, she said, what in the world are you talking about? This is a very serious thing, Edith, he replied. Our pig is completely out of the ordinary. Well, what's unusual about the pig? Asked Mrs. Zuckerman, who was beginning to recover from her scare. Well, I really don't know yet, said Mr. Zuckerman. But we have received a sign, Edith, a mysterious sign. A miracle has happened on this farm. There, in a large spider web in the doorway of the barn cellar, right over the pig pen, and where Lurvy went in to feed the pig this morning, he noticed the web because it was foggy. And you know how a spider's web looks in very distinct fog. And right bang in the middle of the web were the words, some pig. The words were woven right into the web. They were actually part of the web, Edith. I know because I have just been down there and seen them. It says some pig, just as clear can be. There can be no mistake about it. A miracle has happened, and a sign has occurred here on earth, and it's right at our farm. We have no ordinary pig. Can you tell what the meaning of the word ordinary is? Okay, like usual, like everybody else. Well, said Mrs. Zuckerman, it seems to me that you are a little off. It seems to me that we have no ordinary spider. Oh, no, said Zuckerman. It's the pig that's unusual. It says so right in the middle of the web. Maybe so, said Mrs. Zuckerman. But just the same, I intend to have a look at the spider. It's just a common gray spider, said Zuckerman. And they got up, and together they walked down to Wilbur's yard. You see, Edith, it's just a common gray spider. Wilbur was pleased to receive so much attention. Lurvy was still standing there, and Mr. and Mrs. Zuckerman, all three, stood for about an hour, reading the words on the web over, over, and over, and watching Wilbur. Charlotte was delighted with the way her trick was working. She sat without moving a muscle, and she just listened to the conversation of the people. When a small fly blundered into the web just beyond the word pig, Charlotte just dropped down quickly and rolled the fly up and carried it out of the way. And after a while, the fog lifted. The web dried off so that the words did not show up so plainly. The Zuckermans and Lurvy walked back to the house, and just before they left the pig pen, Mr. Zuckerman took one last look at Wilbur. Mr. Zuckerman said this. Well, you know, he said in an important voice, I have thought all along that that pig of ours was an extra good one. He's a solid pig. That pig is as solid as they come. You notice how solid he is around the shoulders, Lurvy? Sure, I do, said Lurvy. I've always noticed that pig. He's quite a pig. He's long and he's smooth, said Zuckerman. That's right, said Lurvy. He's as smooth as they come. He is some pig. When Mr. Zuckerman got back to the house, he took off his work clothes and he put on his best suit. They got into his car and he drove to the minister's house. He stayed for an hour and he explained to the minister that a miracle had happened on the farm. So far, said Zuckerman, only 4 people on this earth know about the miracle. Myself, my wife Edith, my hired man Lurvy, and you. Well, don't tell anybody else, said the minister. We don't know what it means yet, but perhaps if I give thought to it, I can explain it in my sermon next Sunday. There can be no doubt that you have the most unusual pig. I intend to speak about it in my sermon and point out the fact that this community has been visited by a wondrous animal. And by the way, does the pig have a name? Said the minister. Why, yes, said Mr. Zuckerman. My little niece calls him Wilbur. She's rather a queer child. She's full of notions. She raised the pig on a bottle, and I bought him from her when he was a month old. He shook hands with the minister and left. Secrets are hard to keep. And long before Sunday came, what do you think happened? News spread all over the county. No longer was it just 4 people that knew, and now there was many more people that knew. Everybody knew that a sign had appeared in a spider web on the Zuckerman's place in the barn. Everybody knew that the Zuckermans had a wondrous pig. People came from miles and miles around just to look at Wilbur and to read the words on Charlotte's web. The Zuckermans' driveway was full of cars and trucks from morning to night. There were Fords and Chevys and Buick Roadmasters, GMC pickups and Plymouths, and Studebakers and Packards and DeSotos with gyromatic transmissions. There were Oldsmobiles with rocket engines and Jeep station wagons and Pontiacs. Those are types of what? Cars. The news of the wonderful pig spread clear up and down into the hills, and farmers came rattling in their buggies and their buckboards to stand hour after hour at Wilbur's pen, admiring this miraculous animal. And all of them said they had never seen such a pig before in their lives. Well, when Fern told her mother that Avery had tried to hit the Zuckerman spider with a stick, Mrs. Arable was so shocked that she sent Avery to bed without supper as a punishment. And in the days that followed, Mr. Zuckerman was so busy entertaining all the visitors that he neglected, which means he didn't do his farm work. He wore his good clothes all the time now. He got right into them when he got up in the morning. Mrs. Zuckerman prepared special meals now for Wilbur. Lurvy shaved, he got a haircut, and his principal main farm duty was just to feed that pig while people looked on. Mr. Zuckerman ordered Lurvy to increase Wilbur's feedings from not 3 meals a day to 4 meals a day. And the Zuckermans got so busy with visitors, they forgot about the other things on the farm. The blackberries got ripe. Nobody picked them. Mrs. Zuckerman failed to put up any blackberry jam. The corn needed hoeing, and Lurvy didn't find time to hoe it. On Sunday, the church was full. The minister explained the miracle. He said that the words on the spider's web proved that human beings must always be on the watch for the coming of wonders. All in all, the Zuckerman's pig pen was the center of attraction. Fern was happy, for she felt that Charlotte's trick was working and that Wilbur's life would be saved. But she found that the barn was not nearly as pleasant. There were too many people. She liked it better when she could be all alone with just her friends, the animals. Can you tell me what the wondrous sign was that proved to be a miracle in the barn? It was the sign that actually Charlotte had woven into her what? Her web. Her web. What did this little sign cause throughout the community? It caused all the people to come and see. Word spread all across the county that the Zuckermans had a very special pig. Now, what were some of the things that the Zuckermans did now that they thought they had a special pig? They fed Wilbur more, right? They kept people in and out in there at the barn, in the barn cellar, right? They came to look and view. What did not get done when they thought they had a special pig? The farm work, the blackberry jam, the corn needed hoeing, and things did not get done. Very good. Charlotte has now helped Wilbur. Has Charlotte proved to be a special friend to Wilbur? She has. She has. What is a word that we could call a friend or someone who has proved to be a very good friend to us? What word is that? Loyal. Loyal. Very good. In this chapter, we learned several examples of a figurative language. Do you remember what it was called? A simile. A simile is when you compare two things, like we compared with reading, but they use the word like or as. This one happened to use the word like, and there were several of them. If you would like to read ahead, I would love for you to do so you can be prepared. We will read next time chapter 12, A Meeting, okay? I hope that you are enjoying this book as much as I am. You get your last star there for ELA. Let's not forget to, here's your last penguin. Let's not forget to make sure you are doing your daily website work. A lot of you did the iReady last week in math and reading. You were supposed to do 20 minutes a day for 4 days. That's 80 minutes a week. Some of you have gotten the 100 for that. Some of you did not complete that. You might have done one, but not the other. Okay. So, because we only have this one lesson per day, you can spend the other 20 minutes per subject for the iReady. Okay. Make sure if you have any questions that you let Miss Gaylord know, okay, as well. You can email her or you can call her or write a comment on your Google Classroom, okay? I hope you're doing great and we have another week, another Monday down, and you have a couple of more days this week to learn, okay? All right, well, you take care and remember that I love you, I miss you, and I look forward to seeing your face again soon, okay? All right. Take care. See you next time. Bye bye.